You feel it before the words take shape, a trembling beneath your skin, a pressure in the hollow of your chest where no breath seems to settle. You are an empath, though this name is just a fragile vessel trying to hold the storm inside you. You drink from the well of others' sorrows, taste the bitter salt of their suffering, and carry their unseen burdens as if they were your own flesh and bone. Yet here lies the warning. You have long ignored this gift, so revered and misunderstood, is a double-edged blade carving silent wounds beneath your light. There is a shadow lurking where your compassion meets your exhaustion, a dark hunger fed by unbound giving, an abyss where your own soul slips quietly away. You may not see it yet, but the very openness that lets the world in can also be your undoing. What if the heart that feels too much is not only vulnerable, but endangered by what it absorbs? What if your gift, your profound sensitivity, is quietly draining the life force you scarcely recognize as your own? The world calls you healer, savior, light in the dark. But beneath these titles hides a secret pact, one that asks too much, demands sacrifice without rest, and feeds on your invisible fractures. Can you hear the whisper beneath the roar of empathy's song? It is the call of the shadow, the echo of inner wounds crying for recognition, warning you that the path you walk is both sacred and treacherous. This is the beginning of your reckoning, the awakening to a truth that will shake the foundations of who you think you are. You reach deeper now, stepping into the archetypal twilight, where light and shadow entwine, and the dance of your soul unfolds in ancient patterns written before you drew breath. You are not merely a bearer of feelings, you are the stage where the eternal struggle plays out, the healer entwined with the wounded, the empath bound to the narcissist, the light forever chasing its dark counterpart. Within you lives the duality Jung called the self, the whole that carries both the luminous and the obscure. This is no accident of fate, but a reflection of the primal forces that shaped your psyche. The empath is born from a deep well of sensitivity, yes, but also from a fracture, a wound so profound it calls out across the corridors of time. It is here you meet the shadow, that forgotten, often feared part of yourself, not outside, but within, waiting in the dark to be seen and understood. Your inner world is a crucible where polarities merge, the giver who heals others, and the part that hides a silent hunger for healing itself, the heart that opens wide and the parts that close in fear, the self that sacrifices endlessly and the self that is starving in silence. In the mirror of relationships, you glimpse this archetypal play, how the narcissist's hunger for admiration awakens your drive to give, how their absence of self calls you to fill the void, how their shadow becomes your shadow, coiling tightly like twin serpents locked in a secret embrace. This dynamic is not random, but ritualistic, an age-old rite of passage reenacted in the intimate theater of your life. The wounded healer archetype does not heal without first confronting their own pain. The empath cannot give without the risk of losing themselves to the ocean of others' emotions. Here, the boundary between self and other thins, dangerously like a razor's edge, where your soul teeters between wholeness and dissolution. You may feel as if you carry 1,000 lifetimes within you, the echoes of ancestral pain, the collective suffering of the uncounted, the invisible wounds of those who came before. The archetypes whisper in your ear, not as distant myths, but as living forces alive in your veins. They call you to remember that your empathic gift is a bridge between worlds, a passage between the seen and unseen, a sacred threshold where the pain of the world meets the yearning for redemption. Yet with this power comes a profound risk. The light of empathy, if unguarded, blinds as much as it illuminates. The shadow, if unacknowledged, will seep into your dreams and your waking hours, manifesting as exhaustion, confusion, self-doubt, and despair. It is here in this liminal space you must learn to walk, not fleeing the darkness, nor drowning in it, but holding the tension as an artist holds the brush, painting the contours of your own soul. As Jung once hinted, the process of individuation, the journey to become whole, requires you to embrace your shadow, to recognize it as part of the divine pattern woven into your being. The empath is called to awaken from unconscious sacrifice into conscious sovereignty, from victimhood to the mystery of self-possession. This is the crucible of transformation, where the archetypes shift from destructive forces to allies, where the wounded healer can stand not as martyr, but as master of their own inner kingdom. You may wonder, how did this dance begin? Perhaps in the silent moments of childhood when you first learned to protect the fragile parts of yourself by taking on the pain of others. Perhaps in the ancestral echoes that pulse beneath your skin coded in the DNA of survival and empathy. Or perhaps it is the inevitable call of the soul urging you toward the deep and difficult work of integration. In this sacred unfolding, the empath meets the narcissist, not as enemy, but as mirror. The wounding is not punishment, but invitation. The light and shadow, the giver and taker, are threads of the same tapestry woven tight and ancient. To untangle one without the other would unravel the very fabric of your being. So listen closely now to the subtle murmurs beneath your feelings. Sense the rhythm of the archetypal pulse within the push and pull, the silent contract made between the parts of yourself and the world. These patterns are not your fault, but they are your responsibility to recognize. The path is not to annihilate the shadow, but to meet it as a lover meets a storm, wild, fierce, and ultimately necessary. You stand at the crossroads of your own myth, the hero's journey inward, where each wound holds a seed, each darkness a spark of light. This is the profound paradox of your empathic soul. To heal the world, you must first heal yourself. To give deeply, you must learn to receive. To embody the light, you must embrace the shadow. Now you begin to see that the archetypes are not distant gods, but inner voices speaking in the language of symbols and feelings, inviting you to a deeper knowing. They tell you that the wounds you carry are not weaknesses, but gateways. That the pain you absorb is not a curse, but a call. That within your vulnerability lies the dormant strength of transformation. You may feel the stirring of recognition, an ancient echo that trembles beneath your skin, the subtle alignment of inner forces ready to awaken. This is the beginning of your sacred task to navigate the labyrinth of polarities, to hold the tension without losing yourself, to find the balance where healer and wounded become one. In this shadowed landscape, you walk not alone, but as part of a great lineage of seekers, those who dared to face their darkness and rise into the light. As Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Here in the crucible of your empathic heart, the darkness waits not to destroy, but to reveal the deeper truths buried beneath the surface of your giving. So lean into the mystery, breathe the paradox, and know that this journey is the oldest story ever told, the dance of soul and shadow, pain and power loss and liberation. Within you lies the entire cosmos, and the archetypes call you to awaken to their eternal song. You are drawn into the magnetic pull between opposites, a dance older than time itself, where each step is written in the stars and played out in the hidden chambers of your heart. This is no mere chance encounter, but a ritual drama, an archetypal collision that spins endlessly between you and the other, the giver and the taker, the empath and the narcissist, the light and the shadow. Their dance is inevitable, as the moon is pulled to the tides, as fire yearns for the breath of wind. Look closely. Now, see how you move toward the one who seems to consume, who demands and drains, who leaves a hollow in your being that you rush to fill. This is not weakness, but a pattern etched deep into the psyche, a sacred drama repeating until the soul learns its true script. The magnetism between you is electric and perilous, a tension that binds you in a ritual pact. Though invisible, it is as real as the blood that flows beneath your skin. The empath gives until the self dissolves, and the narcissist takes until the void inside momentarily feels full. Each plays a role written long before either entered the stage, a cosmic story of dependency and power, longing and denial. You are the wounded healer drawn to the wound, the light compelled to face its shadow, the soul caught in a cycle of endless giving and hidden hunger. Yet this dance is more than personal. It is a reenactment of archetypal forces, the eternal conflict between creation and destruction, union and separation. Like the ancient myth of Eros and Psyche, you seek wholeness through the tension of opposites, drawn by a love that wounds as much as it heals. The ritual unfolds not in ritual halls, but in the quiet, raw moments of your life. The conversations that cut deep, the silences that scream the invisible contracts made without words. In the shadow of this dance, you often lose sight of yourself, swallowed by the role you play, mistaking the ritual for reality. The empath becomes the savior, sacrificing until the boundaries of self vanish like smoke. The narcissist becomes the tyrant, commanding admiration, but hiding a fragile core that fears abandonment. Together you enact the sacred drama of dependency, binding and breaking in cycles as old as human longing. As Jung suggested, these polarities serve a purpose beyond pain. They call you to consciousness, to wakefulness. The ritual, with all its anguish, is an invitation to see beneath the surface, to perceive the archetypal pattern that ensnares you. The collision is not a trap, but a portal, a passage through which the soul may emerge transformed. You may notice the subtle signs, the recurring themes in your relationships, the dreams where you are both prisoner and liberator, the moments when the roles reverse and you glimpse the shadow in the light in the shadow. These are the sacred clues, the language of the unconscious speaking in symbols and feelings, urging you to look deeper. In this ritual drama, power flows like a river, with hidden currents, sometimes gentle, sometimes violent. The empath gives to feel connected, to heal wounds that mirror their own. The narcissist takes to stave off the terrifying emptiness within. Each depends on the other, caught in a loop of unspoken need and unrecognized wounds. But what if you could step out of the dance? What if the ritual were not a prison, but a teacher showing you where your soul is wounded and where it longs to be free? The sacred drama beckons you to remember that you are more than the roles you play, more than the stories you tell yourself about who you must be to survive. There is a rhythm here, a heartbeat beneath the pain that pulses with the possibility of liberation. The dance of opposites can become a dance of integration, where the empath learns not only to give, but to receive, where the shadow is not an enemy, but a guide, where the wounded healer rises not as victim, but as sovereign. This transformation is not quick or easy. The ritual must be felt, lived, known in the depths before it can be transcended. The patterns are as old as your ancestors, woven into your very blood and bone. Yet within the repetition lies the seed of awakening, a hidden grace that calls you to awaken from unconscious suffering into conscious power. As you move through this dance, you begin to notice the moments when the ritual shifts, the flicker of self-recognition in your eyes, the softening of blame, the courage to say no without guilt. These are the footsteps toward freedom, the small revolutions of the soul that break the cycle. The empath and the narcissist, the light and the shadow, are not enemies to be destroyed, but teachers to be honored. Their dance is the dance of life itself, the endless weaving of union and separation, love and loss, surrender and sovereignty. To walk this path is to walk the razor's edge between sacrifice and self-preservation, between dissolution and wholeness. You may ask yourself in the quiet moments, who am I beneath these roles? What part of me has been lost in the giving? What wounds cry out for healing beneath the patterns? I repeat, these questions are the soft pulse beneath the storm, the invitation to step into a new story. Here in the heart of the ritual, you touch the mystery of your own becoming. The dance calls you not to escape, but to embrace, to feel the tension, and hold it, to move with the sacred rhythm that beats beneath all your suffering and all your longing. The collision of opposites is a song as old as the stars, and you are both the dancer and the dance. The ritual unfolds in every moment, inviting you to awaken, to remember, to reclaim the parts of yourself scattered in the shadow and light. As Jung once whispered through the veil of time, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The sacred dance you share transforms you, invites you to new life, to new awareness, to a deeper embrace of your own soul. Step now into the rhythm. Feel the pulse and listen to the silent music that guides your feet. The dance continues, but you are no longer lost. You are becoming. You have danced the dance long enough to feel its intoxicating pull, the way it seduces you into forgetting who you are beneath the roles you wear. The light, once a beacon, can become a blinding glare that erases the edges of your selfhood. When you over-identify with the healer, the savior, the endlessly giving empath, a quiet danger takes root, a subtle creeping erasure of the very essence that makes you whole. Look closely at this shadow beneath the light. It whispers in your dreams, hides in the margins of your waking life, a ghostly refrain that goes unheard amid the noise of giving. You find yourself lost in the needs of others, your voice, a fading echo beneath their demands. The lines between your pain and theirs blur until you no longer distinguish where you end and they begin. This is the peril of over-identification, the self dissolved into the endless ocean of others' suffering. You may notice the symptoms before naming the cause: exhaustion, that no rest can mend a hollow ache, that no kindness can fill dreams haunted by faces not your own, and a persistent feeling of invisibility, even as you give everything. Perhaps you hear the subtle warnings, your body tightening your heart, closing your soul, whispering for space to breathe. Yet, the compulsion to heal, to save, to carry remains fierce, a siren song that drowns out your own needs. In this relentless giving, you are caught in a paradox. The very gift that connects you to the world becomes the thread that unravels yourself. The boundary that should protect dissolves into permeability. Your identity fades as you melt into the emotions of others. You become a vessel, a conduit, but not a container of your own life force. There are moments fleeting and fragile when you glimpse this truth beneath the surface. A dream where you stand alone in a vast desert, thirsting but afraid to drink. A waking hour when your laughter rings hollow, a mask slipping just long enough to reveal the void beneath. These moments are the soul's desperate signals, the shadow's subtle knocks asking to be heard. As Jung observed, the shadow is not an enemy to be feared, but a part of the self, yearning for recognition. Yet when you identify solely with the light, the shadow grows restless, pushing itself into the cracks left by denial. It manifests as burnout, resentment, confusion, and despair. The dream of saving others becomes a nightmare of self-loss. You may try to silence these warnings, convincing yourself that your sacrifice is noble, necessary, even heroic. But beneath the surface, a quieter truth stirs, that endless sacrifice without replenishment is a slow death, a forgetting of the sacred self within. Your empathic heart, so wide and deep, demands nourishment, boundaries, and the courage to say no. This erasure is not a failing, but a signpost, a call to wakefulness. The soul rebels against invisibility, demanding to be seen and held. The light without shadow is incomplete. The healer without self is a hollow figure in the night. You are invited now to recognize that your power lies not in giving endlessly, but in holding yourself with the same tenderness you offer others. Dreams may show you this with symbolic clarity: a garden left untended, a flame burning at both ends, a mirror cracked and ignored. These images speak in the language of the unconscious, revealing the cost of over-identification and the necessity of self-care, not as selfishness, but as survival. You may sense the tension between duty and desire, between the sacred call to help and the primal need to protect. This tension is the crucible where transformation begins. To recognize your own limits is not failure, but courage. To honor your own boundaries is not betrayal, but fidelity to your soul's truth. The risk of self-erasure is woven into the empath's journey, a silent shadow stalking every act of giving. But within this danger lies a hidden gift, the opportunity to awaken from unconscious sacrifice into conscious sovereignty. To step back from the edge and look clearly at the dance, to see where you have lost yourself and where you might reclaim your power. You may ask, what keeps you trapped in this cycle? Perhaps it is fear, the fear of abandonment, rejection, or unworthiness. Perhaps it is an ancient wound, a silent contract made in childhood to earn love through sacrifice. Or perhaps it is the unconscious hope that your giving will fill the void you feel inside. Whatever the source, the danger remains real, insidious, and deeply personal. It is the shadow of your empathic gift, the unseen cost of carrying too much. But it is also a doorway, a dark passage leading toward awakening. As you listen to these subtle warnings, you begin to hear a different voice, the voice of your own soul whispering for recognition. It speaks not in grand declarations, but in quiet moments, a pause before saying yes, a breath taken before giving more, a small but fierce no spoken with trembling lips. This voice is the herald of transformation, the gentle rebel stirring within the fortress of self-erasure. It calls you to wake from the dream of endless sacrifice and to remember that your worth is not measured by how much you give, but by the fullness of your being. In the depths of this danger lies a profound invitation to see the shadow not as a threat, but as a guide. To recognize that your light can only shine fully when it embraces its darkness. To understand that the empath's true power arises not from losing yourself in others, but from holding your own space with fierce love. You may feel the stirrings of resistance, the pull to return to familiar patterns of giving and losing. Yet within you is a deeper knowing, a seed of self-awareness ready to break through the surface. This is the moment of reckoning, the turning point, where the empath chooses to become whole. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadows of over-identification are no longer silent. They are calling you to remember, to reclaim, to rise. Hold these words close as you move through the labyrinth of your own soul. The danger is real, but so is the power to transform. The path forward is not in more sacrifice, but in the sacred balance of light and shadow, giving and receiving, loving others and loving yourself. You stand now at the edge between self-loss and self-possession, between exhaustion and renewal. The choice is yours, but know this: the soul that dares to say no, that honors its own boundaries, is the soul that will finally come home. In the quiet spaces where the noise of the world fades, you begin to feel the shift, slow, imperceptible, but unmistakable. You have stood at the precipice long enough to sense the pull, the longing for transformation that pulses beneath the surface of your tired heart. It is not the kind of change that comes from sacrifice or surrender, not the kind that asks you to give up pieces of yourself in exchange for some illusory healing. No, this transformation arises from something far more potent, something far more sacred. It emerges from self-awareness, from the radical act of recognizing and accepting your limits. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to step into the space of your own life with conscious awareness, to finally understand that your power does not lie in how much you can give, but in how much you can hold. Holding is not hoarding. It is the act of creating a container for your own sacred energy, a vessel where your light and shadow may coexist without overpowering one another. It is not a surrender, but an awakening to the full depth of your being, a claim of sovereignty over the territory of your soul. You are not merely an empath to be drained by the world, not a giver whose identity dissolves into the endless needs of others. You are a force of nature, a unique expression of the universe here, not to be sacrificed on the altar of others' demands, but to walk a path of conscious power. This path requires a deeper awareness, one that comes from the act of turning inward, listening to the quiet whispers of your soul as it speaks in images, feelings, and subtle sensations. You must learn to feel the difference between giving from a well that overflows and giving from an empty cup. There is a profound grace in the moment when you realize that transformation is not about becoming something you are not, but about becoming more of who you already are. This is not a call to perfection, but a call to integration. The fractured self, split between the light of empathy and the shadow of self-erasure, is now invited to come together to remember the wholeness that lies at the core of your being. You are both the healer and the wounded, both the light and the shadow, both the giver and the one who must receive. Transformation begins with this simple yet radical shift, to stop looking outward for your sense of self and begin looking inward. It begins when you no longer seek validation in how much you can sacrifice. but in how much you can honor yourself. There is a sacredness in saying no, in protecting your own energy, in learning to discern where your giving is truly life-affirming and where it is an unconscious sacrifice that depletes you. Your power, your inner strength, is not in the act of saving, but in the act of honoring your own boundaries. You may wonder, how do you begin this journey of transformation? It is not as simple as an immediate shift, not as straightforward as a single decision. It begins with small intentional acts of self-awareness. It begins with noticing when your energy feels drained, when the needs of others begin to feel like a burden rather than a blessing. It begins with the soft, tender practice of checking in with yourself, of asking, what do I need right now, rather than, what do others need from me? This is the doorway to transformation, this simple act of turning inward, of listening to the quiet voice within that knows the truth of your soul. In this space, you begin to reconnect with the deep primal energy that exists in the core of your being. You are not here to fix the world, to solve every problem, or to heal every wound. You are here to live fully, to express your unique gifts in a way that nourishes and sustains you, to learn the sacred art of balance between giving and receiving. As Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Becoming yourself is not about conforming to the expectations of others, or even to your own internalized ideas of what it means to be an empath. It is about shedding the layers of expectation, the burdens of guilt and responsibility that have been placed upon you, and reclaiming the wild, untamed truth of who you are. It is about daring to step into the world as a whole, being not defined by your wounds, but by the fullness of your own life force. This transformation asks you to do the deep work of self-inquiry, to peel back the layers of old patterns and false beliefs that have kept you trapped in cycles of giving and losing. It asks you to challenge the stories you have told yourself about what it means to be an empath, about what it means to be a healer. Healing is not about endless giving. It is about learning to receive the love, the care, the nourishment that you so freely offer to others. You may feel fear creeping in, fear that if you stop giving, if you start protecting your energy, you will somehow be abandoned, unloved, or unworthy. But this fear is the shadow's trick, the old wound playing its familiar tune. The truth is that when you claim your boundaries, when you honor your needs, you are not shutting out the world, you are inviting it to meet you at a deeper level. You are showing others that love does not require self-sacrifice, that true compassion arises from the fullness of the self. As you begin to integrate this truth, you will feel the old patterns begin to loosen their grip. The drain on your energy will lessen, and the sense of depletion that has haunted you will fade. You will begin to feel the peace that arises when you know your own power, when you recognize that your light is not finite but infinite, when you realize that to truly heal the world, you must first heal yourself. This is the doorway to transformation, not through sacrifice, but through self-awareness, self-honor, and self-compassion. It is through knowing your own limits that you reclaim your strength, and through holding yourself with the same tenderness you extend to others that you awaken to the fullness of your being. And so the journey continues not toward the destruction of the self, but toward the reclamation of your sovereignty. It is not a path of avoidance or withdrawal, but one of conscious, deliberate engagement with the world from a place of wholeness and power. The true empath is not the one who gives until they are empty, but the one who gives from a place of fullness, who knows their limits, and who moves through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who has claimed their own sacred space. You have reached the heart of the journey, the final stretch where the veil of illusion begins to lift, and you can see clearly the truth of your own power. It is here in this sacred space that you are asked to step fully into your sovereignty. The soul that has long been divided, torn between the light of empathy and the darkness of self-erasure, now stands whole, balanced, and awake. There is no grand fanfare, no dramatic shift in the heavens. Instead, it is the quiet understanding that settles within you, like the stillness of a deep lake at dawn, reflecting the fullness of the sky. You are no longer the empath who sacrifices endlessly, no longer the healer who gives until the well is dry. You are something more, the guardian of your own soul, the keeper of your energy, the one who knows the sacred art of saying no without guilt, the one who honors their own needs as much as they honor the needs of others. In this space, you finally realize that true power lies not in giving without end, but in the balance between giving and receiving. The gift of empathy is sacred, yes, but it is not a burden to bear alone. You are not here to save others from their own pain. You are here to stand beside them, to witness, to share in the human experience with compassion, but never at the cost of your own soul. You no longer need to take on the weight of the world, because you have learned to walk with it without being crushed by it. The boundaries you have created, those sacred lines that once felt like chains, are now seen for what they truly are, shields that protect the sanctity of your own being. You understand now that these boundaries are not walls but bridges between you and the world, allowing you to interact from a place of wholeness, not depletion. You are not withdrawing. You are drawing closer to your own truth, to the wisdom that comes from knowing yourself fully. In this moment, you realize the sacredness of saying no. It is not an act of rejection, but an affirmation of your own worth. When you say no to others, you are saying yes to yourself. This simple act is one of the most powerful expressions of self-love and self-respect. It is the quiet rebellion against the endless cycle of giving, without receiving the bold declaration that you are worthy of your own care, your own time, your own energy. There is a fierce grace in this new understanding. You no longer need to prove your worth through sacrifice. You are worthy because you exist. You are worthy because you are a unique expression of the universe, with gifts to offer, but also with limits that must be honored. You are no longer a vessel for the world's pain. You are a being of light and shadow, whole and complete, powerful in your ability to love yourself and others without losing yourself. It is not the end of the journey, but a beginning, the beginning of living fully in the world as your true self. You are no longer at the mercy of external forces, no longer a victim to the roles you once played. You are now the creator of your own story, the author of your own life. And in this story, you no longer stand in the shadow of your gift. Instead, you stand in the full light of your own being, proud, strong, and fully alive. You will continue to face challenges, of course. The world will continue to call you to give, to care, to heal. But now you stand firm in your truth. You know that your worth is not measured by how much you give, but by how much you hold sacred within yourself. The power you once sought outside of you is now rooted firmly within. You have learned the most profound lesson of all: the ability to care for others comes only when you first care for yourself. The ability to heal others is born from the ability to heal yourself. The ability to love others is born from the ability to love yourself. In this space of empowerment, you no longer seek validation from the world. You no longer look to others to tell you that you are worthy. You know your worth. You know your power. And you move through the world not as a passive observer, but as an active participant in the unfolding of your own soul's journey. The old patterns of overgiving, of self-erasure, fade into the past. They are no longer the stories you tell yourself. You have rewritten your narrative, and now you stand in the truth of your own becoming. You are no longer bound by the expectations of others or by the unconscious need to prove yourself through sacrifice. You have found the deepest truth that you are enough just as you are. Your light, your empathy, your compassion. These are gifts, yes, but they do not define you. You define yourself, and so the world opens before you, not as a place of endless demands, but as a canvas upon which you can paint your own life, your own story. You are the creator, the artist, the hero of your own myth. And in this myth, you are not defined by your wounds, but by your power to rise above them, to embrace both your light and your shadow, and to walk the path of self-empowerment with grace, wisdom, and courage. The dance is no longer a struggle. The ritual is no longer one of sacrifice. You have become whole, sovereign, and free. This is your true power. This is your true self. And it is from this place of inner strength that you will move forward, ever evolving, ever expanding, ever true to the essence of who you are.